Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, and when I'm not making those hobos really work for my spare change by pitting them against each other in mortal combat, I'm here at the Wolfula reviewing movies. Okay, I just now watched the prequel/spin-off that came out in May that's part of a decade-spanning beloved franchise, which explains the origins of how two iconic characters of pop culture first met. I'm talking, of course, about Daphne and Velma. Yep, a new live-action film in the Scooby-Doo franchise was released recently, which ditches Fred, Shaggy, and even the mascot Scooby-Doo, instead focusing on the female members of Mystery Inc. Velma Dinkley and Daphne Blake meeting for the first time in high school.
Boo!
Why did this need to exist? Well, Ashley Tisdale, that chick who was on Disney Channel once, and her less famous sister started a film production company called Blondie Girl Productions, which, I have to admit, is a sick-ass production company name. The Tisdale Company has a contract with Warner Brothers and specializes in content aimed at women by women. So, clearly, Hollywood is ruled by shit based on older shit, so Blondie Girl obviously dived into Warner's selection of female characters and went with the ladies of Scooby-Doo for a film. So it was either that or a Penelope Pitstop solo film. Now, pushing for female-led, female-created films is admirable and necessary. You know, when actual effort is put in. This is not one of those cases, unfortunately. Honestly, Scooby-Doo is one of those franchises that only ever works when the whole gang is present. Remember that stint in the 80s where it was just Shaggy, Scooby, and the unnamed one? Yeah, no. The last attempt at a live-action Scooby-Doo film didn't even have Scooby-Doo in it. Ridiculous. Not only is this film obviously Velma and Daphne-centric, but there's also absolutely no trace of any other Scooby-Doo characters or concepts. Honestly, besides the names and the characters' aesthetic, very little about the film would tip you off that it was a Scooby-Doo product. The opening credits itself sets the film's generic tone. Okay, yeah, I know that this is a kid's movie and everything, but children deserve not shitty movies, right? Show a child a shitty movie, they're more likely to deal meth when they're adults. And not even good meth. Really subpar meth. So let's delve into Daphne and Velma, shall we? Yeah, I know I still have to cover The Hills Have Eyes Part 2 and other actual horror movies, but just let me have this, please. Please? Daphne Blake is a teenage live vlogger that discusses the mysteries of paranormal disturbances, and Velma Dinkley is Daphne's long-distance bookish chum that talks shit about Daphne's stupid-ass beliefs in ghosts and aliens.
Aliens did not mess with that theme park, Daphne. Maybe they did, Velma. We don't know.
Besides their common interest in the supernatural, the two girls couldn't be more contrasting, as evidenced by the close-ups of random shit hanging in both of their rooms. Daphne breaks some spectacular news to Velma over Skype, Bloomgram. Daphne's family is relocating, and the redhead will soon be attending the same school as Velma, Ridge Valley High School.
We can finally be best friends IRL.
Now, Ridge Valley isn't just any other throwaway, blandly named fictional high school. It's a super technological high school of the future, sponsored by tech billionaire Tobias Bloom's company, Bloom Innovative. What makes Ridge Valley High so high-tech? Well, a guy is seen riding a hoverboard, there's a random, barely functional robot prop in the hallway, some generic RC drones are seen flying around carrying talking toy clouds, and the principal has a smart speaker shaped like a ball with a crudely drawn face on it.
Conflict couch engaged.
Oh, also there's some transparent phones that violate privacy laws, and some giant smart screens added in post-production. The flick spends a lot of time really marveling at how futuristic its school setting is with its rudimentary visual effects and laughably bad art design. This flick has some of the ugliest clashing props, set design, and wardrobe I've ever seen in a movie. The film was obviously shot on a really low budget, so the school is clearly just a random drab school with as much sci-fi stuff that the filmmakers can afford to tack on. The film sort of just leaves the audience to accept the school as high-tech, and relies on effects and post to do a lot of the heavy lifting in that department. Oh, the lockers have smart screens built inside them, but they still use combination locks? Okay, sure. I wouldn't be focusing so much attention on the look of the film if it didn't fixate so heavily on how supposedly amazing the school is to the point of neglecting the characters. You can't be this much of a slave to your visuals when this is the CGI you're working with, okay? Like, the movie even makes an attempt at the cartoon eyes in the dark thing, but it's just the stuff of my nightmares. Oh, God. But what's the actual story here? It should be kind of familiar. Daphne, played by Sarah Jeffrey, finally meets Velma, played by Sarah Gilman, at Ridge Valley High School, but the spectacled girl is cagey upon meeting the friend that she likely discussed experimenting with in person.
I can't have lunch with you, Daphne. Not today, not ever.
What? Why?
Why? It seems to have something to do with other students acting funny, as if they're brainwashed zombies shambling off into a locker shrouded in smoke.
Seem kind of off.
He's fine. Good. But he's my lab partner, so move along.
The changes in the students are also supposedly tied to the Bloom Bracket, a board at the school that publicly ranks students and determines whether or not they're worthy to be an intern for the illustrious Tobias Bloom, who everybody seems to really want to fuck.
Make them proud, girls. Make them proud. Oh, sorry.
The plot of Daphne and Velma is essentially the same as the first live-action film, with the billionaire and the seemingly brainwashed teens. Just swap the island theme park setting for a techno high school. Not to spoil things too much, but even the twist as to who's responsible for the bizarre happenings is pretty much the same deal as the first flick. Just, you know, not Scrappy-Doo this time. Like, seriously, when you're writing a live-action Scooby-Doo flick, it shouldn't be too hard to watch the first one to make sure you're not rehashing this hard. The problem with this film's plot ultimately lies in its lack of direction, though, and lack of a strong central villain during its runtime. There's no monster, ghost, or any other kind of villain that the girls chase after throughout the mystery to motivate them. Though the film doesn't focus too much attention on the mystery and fleshing it out anyway. The movie's only 70 minutes long, and honestly, an average episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You has a deeper mystery than this flick. Instead, the film spends a lot of time with slice-of-life high school scenes, like scoldings by Velma's quirky aunt, Principal Piper.
I'm gonna have to give you girls shame stickers. Take them.
And much attention is paid to character development, particularly Daphne's, which would be a good thing if it was handled in an interesting, relatable way. Daphne's first day at school goes very well, except for Velma's avoidance of her, until Daphne finds out that literally the only reason why her life goes so well is because her stay-at-home dad, who was lucky enough to marry a super wealthy inventor, literally stalks Daphne throughout her day and makes sure everything goes well.
What about the time I scored a half-court shot at a basketball game with my eyes closed?
That was real.
Okay.
Leave me, disguised as a mascot. There were trampolines involved. I am so sorry, Daphne.
Dad, how could you?
It's honestly kinda creepy more than it is sweet. So, per Daphne's request, her dad Nedley, yeah, that's seriously his name, stopped stalking his daughter.
You've literally sheltered me my whole life.
He was just trying to protect you.
I don't need protection, okay? I can handle myself.
Because of this, Daphne's life becomes worse as she has to actually tackle day-to-day experiences by herself. What a concept. Fucking rich, privileged brat.
I guess I'm just on my own now.
Despite the title, Velma is honestly more of a sidekick in this movie. Velma starts off incredibly mean to Daphne IRL.
Why are you doing this to me?
You're the one who won't leave me alone!
But this turns out to be tough love. Yeah, she doesn't want Daphne to fall prey to whatever is taking over the other students.
Something weird is happening to the top students here.
Like what happened to Spencer?
It happened to another girl, Olivia. Before you got here, she was a world-class violinist, and now she can't even play a note.
Even after the two finally decide to team up to solve the mystery, though, Velma's still kind of a bitch.
Do you want to go out sometime?
No.
I'm just gonna...
Yeah, just go.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe it's for good reason, though. Everybody seems to not only bully Velma, but also just absolutely hate her to the point that I was afraid this movie would turn out to be the Scooby-Doo version of 13 Reasons Why. It's kind of sad.
Velma has friends. Wow.
It's also a shame because it seems like Sarah Gilman is putting the most effort into acting like the character she's based on, but they don't even have Velma say Jinkies. What kind of shit is that? The overall film feels sub-Disney Channel original movie, which is really saying something. No scene better exemplifies the laziness of the production than the obligatory chase scene with a ghost.
Ghost, run!
The cinematography is horrendous, with flat, static, repetitive shots for most of it, and the editing is equally shit with sped-up running, dumb mirrored shots, and unnecessary transitions. This is not how you edit a chase sequence because you can't even tell where the ghost is in relation to the other characters a lot of the time. It feels like a porn parody that's required to half-ass a chase scene in between the fucking in order to make it a parody. But there's not even any fucking in this movie. I did feel like a pervert watching this flick though, regardless. Alright, I'm gonna be spoiling the end of Daphne and Velma. If you were intending to still watch it with your kids, or, God forbid, yourself, and want to go in mostly unspoiled, skip to this time code, I guess. Daphne and Velma deduce that Bloom Innovative is behind all the weirdness at the school, so the girls storm the company's headquarters to face off against the madman, Tobias Bloom, who was, I guess, stealing the brain energy of students so he can plagiarize their ideas for inventions, and the latest victim was Daphne's mother. The climax is laughably bad and just how dull it is.
Can't wait to see what kind of ideas the brainstormer sucks out of you. Until then, good luck with my spiders.
Bloom sicks his robot spiders on the girls, and while Daphne saves her ma, Velma single-handedly fights off the robots. Like, it's just a ridiculously bad fight scene. Velma deflects laser beams with karate chops. It's like the actress didn't know what these shots would be used for in the final product. Eventually, Velma bests the robots, and the girls discover that Bloom is actually just a hologram. In reality, Bloom was really their classmate Carol, who I'm just now mentioning because, honestly, this character was pretty inconsequential up to the point she was revealed to be the villain.
Why am I not surprised? But why the hologram? Why the false identity?
Who's gonna let a teenage girl run $1 billion company?
The Bloom moniker was just created so people would take her seriously as an inventor when she was a teen, but when she supposedly contributed so much to the world of technology by herself, including fucking holograms, and is 26 by this point, does she really need to steal ideas and pretend to be a supermodel, dude? Oh, whatever. The police eventually show up. Well, this movie's again lazy, so they just shine police car lights.
I would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for you meddling kids.
Well, at least they remembered meddling kids, I guess. So, let me get this straight. Before Velma and Daphne meet Fred, Shaggy, and Scoob, they take down a multi-billion-dollar corrupt tech company? Seems a bit of a downgrade to solve mysteries involving fake ghosts after that. The denouement doesn't really treat the girls' victory with much gravity in the end, though. In fact, the characters barely mention what happens to the fake Tobias Bloom's company, which was apparently responsible for so much of the technology in the world. Like, what happens to all of that? What were the consequences? No, don't do an upbeat montage of random shit movie. I want some goddamned answers. Okay, fine. Be that way. So, I guess Daphne and Velma are going to take on ghosts in a sequel that probably isn't happening because nobody but me saw this film. I still probably would have watched the sequel, though, if I'm gonna be honest here. So, that was Daphne and Velma. It could have been a fun little diversion/experiment that could have really highlighted iconic female characters for girls to look up to, but it's just a cheap and lazy direct-to-video flick that will be lost in the franchise's history. What little plot there is doesn't make sense in the end. The film looks ugly, the actors are just going through the motions, the music is generic, and the sound design is really, really annoying. The only part of the movie that really made me light up was what I thought was a reference to Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated when Crystal Cove is mentioned.
We could tell everyone about the curse of Crystal Cove.
But knowing the rest of the flick, it was probably a coincidence. This barely feels like a Scooby-Doo project at all at the end of the day. Whenever you split up the gang, it's like watching a David Spade movie without Chris Farley. A bummer and a total waste of time. I give Daphne and Velma a creepy stalking father out of Tobias Bloom. He's so dreamy. I would like to thank the following folks for donating to my Patreon. The channel would be nowhere without loyal viewers like you, and your continued support is greatly appreciated. If any of you would also like to donate to the channel, follow the link to my Patreon at the end of the vid, or the description. Thanks again from your old pal, Dr. Wolfula.
We don't have time for a plan. You take care of your mom. I'm going in.